And welcome to Redacted on this Thursday. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
And this is the show where we hold powerful leaders to account, covering the stories that the mainstream media largely ignores. We are live here every day around 4 p.m. Eastern time, Monday through Thursday. We've got a very, very busy show for you today on the docket. But first, I want to just say thank you to all of you. We saw some kind words coming through in our chat. We are live, so when you leave comments, we see them. We read them right in the middle of the show. We have very nice comments just saying that we are your favorite news show, so I really appreciate that.
Yes, I love hearing that. There was one, a new gold member just a few minutes ago saying that they really appreciate our content, and we appreciate you coming to watch.
That's right.
Makes it all worth it.
So we've got a very busy show on this Thursday. We've got a lot of stories and some moving parts that are continuing to unfold as we speak. So let's kind of go through what we're going to talk about, and then we will get into all of your news today. So first up, we're going to talk about what's going on in China as missiles fired, and some big updates that just happened moments ago on the Taiwanese fallout. We'll have some context there, and you may still be asking, like, why in the world did Nancy Pelosi go there? I think we have maybe the clearest indication of why that was. We will get to that on the show.
Plus, we are going to give you an update on Ukraine. President Zelensky, as we said last night, would like to get China on his side, which is interesting because China has maintained neutrality. But a blockbuster report from Amnesty International shows what we've been saying on this show for many months now, that the Ukrainian army is fighting dirty in violation of international standards. And we're going to break down this report. And I have to say, I was like this.
If you're listening to the audio version of the show, Natalie was just putting her jaw back in place.
I just did want to, like, you put your, because I did not expect any sort of Western authorities to authenticate this, because this is one of the things that gets people in trouble on social media.
Well, and a lot of people were wondering, when the hell is Amnesty International actually going to step in and make comments on this? They were largely ignoring it. And people were saying, wait a second, Amnesty International, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And they were largely silent up until now. So we'll go through and unpack that. We're also going to look at the COVID hearing that unfolded yesterday. Dr. Fauci on the hot seat, Senator Rand Paul going after him once again. We're going to go through the latest and the science on that and the cover-up, why the cover-up continues.
And we are going to talk about the IRS and how they want to come after you. They have a big budget now. Congress wants to give them new cars even to drive around town. Make sure that you're paying your taxes. Do you want to pay them to police you? We're going to break down the numbers.
Let me think about that answer for a second. Let us know in the chat. Would you be happy to give the IRS more money so that they can come and police you in your neighborhood?
You're going to be, if Congress has their way.
Maybe we can put up a poll. I don't know if David's here or not, but let's put up a poll, and so that when we get to that story, do you want the IRS to police you? Do you want the IRS to have additional power? We'll ask that question.
Or additional funds. I think that's a better way to put it.
And we've got a big UFO update. UFO, of course, the Senate and the House of Representatives jointly and somewhat combinedly, is that a word?
No.
No, I just invented it. They combinedly are, of course, putting together and working on the investigatory body task force for UFOs and unidentified aerial phenomenon. Some big developments over the past few days on this story. We've got a special guest on the show who actually broke one of the big pieces of this story before the New York Times as it relates to UFO and investigations. We're talking alien bodies. We're talking wrecked UFO craft, active reversal technology that we are trying to unpack and study very, very closely. So all of that and more as Redacted starts right now. All right.
I'm going to tell you right now that Clayton hates it when he sees local news coverage or any sort of mainstream media cover alien news or anything, UFO related, and the news anchors act silly about it. Like, oh, put on your tin hat, Janice.
I can't stand that shit.
He hates it.
I hate it.
We won't be doing anything cutesy like that.
No, look,
you won't get that from this show.
I've interviewed high-ranking members of the military on this subject. I've interviewed senators. I've interviewed presidents of the United States not on that subject specifically. I wish I had, but other subjects. But senators, governors, high-ranking members of the military, and it's always a disservice to me. It's one of the biggest stories of all time.
Sure.
Is there a bigger story? Can you think of a bigger story that we literally have?
As are we alone in the universe? No.
No, or that the United States government, the Russian government, the Chinese government have downed craft, that they're actively reverse engineering. I mean,
Yes.
if you think about this for a second, yes, is there a bigger story? No, I can't think of it. If there is, let me know.
Yes.
Let me know. Oh, maybe
So
Will Smith,
won't be
Will Smith
poking
slapping
fun.
somebody at the Oscars. Is that a bigger story?
To my mother.
Perhaps, I don't know. But no, I can't stand it. And they would always put like the music. They'll do like X-Files music and they're like, and here's a story that's out of this world. And it drives me nuts. Anyway, we won't be doing that. But
No,
we do have a newsletter that we publish every day. And I hope that you are subscribed to it. If you go to redacted.inc, it's totally free. It's not .com. It's redacted.inc. That's the website you go to, and you'll get a great newsletter that's delivered to your inbox first thing in the morning. You can read it over your cup of coffee, your cup of tea, and you'll be more informed in about 5 to 10 minutes. And again, it's totally free, but it's a great way for us to stay connected because like last night we had an internet outage here on the show.
We did, and Clayton almost threw chairs across the room.
Maybe we had something weird is going on. We were right in the middle of talking about this the CDC cover-up as it relates to Pfizer.
Yeah.
And then suddenly we go down. Like something happens, right? It's
We're
amazing.
here right now. We're going to get through the show. Let's see how far we get.
Yeah. All right. Let's stop. Let's stop with the preamble here, shall we? And let's dive into.
Okay.
Let's start with the big story of the
you
day.
decided.
Let's start with the big story of the day, which is what's going on in China. And right now, missiles fired at Taiwan. Taiwan launching flares in response, and we've got a lot to talk about as it relates to what's unfolding right now in China. So here are warplanes launching, taking off, launching drills, live fire missile drills over the Taiwan Strait. You can see live video here, not live video. This is just from this afternoon. A number of sorties being flown over the median line in Taiwan, in the Taiwan Strait.
China, has said, okay, the exercises have begun. So they are still calling them exercises, but they had flown closer to Taiwanese border than ever before, in some cases as close as 12 kilometers, as well as they have been doing live fire drills and setting off explosives in the sea nearby.
Yeah, so let's take a look at some of the sound from, these are live fire drills. These are actual missile launches that have been captured from multiple angles over the past few hours. Take a look at this.
Okay, so that is a big reaction, right? We were wondering what would happen. Again, this is all in response to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi coming to Taiwan at what's the opposite of the behest, against the wishes of China.
More than 100 Chinese warplanes, including bombers, fighter jets, launched assault and reconnaissance missions. More than 10 destroyer missions also showed up and running missions. We had video earlier today, too, and you see remarkable. You can see the surrounding of Taiwan at this hour. Look at the launching of helicopters and cross Taiwan Strait military drills. And it was remarkable to see video, too, of fishermen who were out in the Taiwan Strait, seeing live fire drills hitting the water right nearby. Some reports from reporters in the area saying that those Taiwanese fishermen turning their boats around and heading back to port. This would not be an area I would want to be out right now and fishing. Let me just say that. Let me go on the record
but the
and say
Chinese
that.
government has also warned that this will delay shipments as well, because any kind of cargo ships in that area were warned to hold up for the next, I think they said 5 days. And they were warned that delays of any goods and services coming in and out of those areas will just have to wait because, and I wrote in the newsletter this morning, is this a throat clearing while they sort of cool off because they're pissed off and then that will be the end of it. We should all be so lucky, right? We don't know how much more is going to come of this. And we've talked at length of the sanctions that are also coming from both sides.
Well, and we're also hearing this afternoon, or over the past few hours, Russia, of course, throwing their support behind Xi Jinping, saying that if they go to war over Taiwan, they will be there to support China, and that China, they expect, then would help them in the war in Ukraine. This is a, mutual. This is the support that Russia is showing China in this effort. So, does the United States want to continue to provoke this connection right now? I don't think so. Probably not the case. The Chinese government also saying we have. If you look, let me just pull back a second. Kinmen County. We showed you this video last night. Kinmen County. This is a map and these islands here. So as I zoom in here on the Kinmen Islands, Kinmen County, which holds the islands there in this region, this is the area that's under, of course, intense pressure right now, where a lot of these missiles have been fired over. And of course, in Ximen, there are a number of amphibious assault vehicles lined up. So this is the main focus. These particular islands right here, this is where all the focus is right now, as tensions are running very, very hot. So we asked the question last night, and I think to provide deeper context on this, what was the purpose of Nancy Pelosi's visit there? Why did she go there? What did she hope to accomplish? Even today, you had Kevin McCarthy, the Republican, the lead Republican in the House of Representatives, in an interview on Fox and Friends this morning saying, I support her. I support her going to China. I just wish that she would have brought some Republicans with her. But other than that, that's my only complaint.
Because they want to grandstand on this tough on China policy, right? Okay, they wanted a photo op too. That's how everyone feels on Instagram when someone goes somewhere cool, you guys.
That's right. So over on Li Jingling's, I'm going to say this wrong. Over on Li Jingjing's YouTube channel this afternoon, she had on a guest, Zhong Jianzhu. I hope I'm saying that right. Forgive me, please, if I'm saying that right.
We're Westerners.
People butcher my name all the time, but I'm hoping I'm saying this correctly. And I think his assessment on talking specifically about Taiwan is the best take that I've heard so far on why Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan and looking at U.S. hegemony in this relationship. So let's listen to Zhong Jianzhu on this podcast this afternoon. Listen.
An incident was the United States in 1874. The first country to ever attack Taiwan with a warship was the U.S. in 1867. And the country that supported Japan in invading Taiwan during the Mudan incident was the United States in 1874. The country that sold weapons to Japan during the First Sino-Japanese War, leading to China's defeat, forcing China to cede Taiwan to Japan, was the U.S. from 1894 to 1895. The country that actively pushes for Japanese containment of China and Taiwanese containment of mainland China is the United States, from the 19th century until today. So can we really say that the United States is our friend? I mean, we're being used to serve U.S. imperialist interests. These recent events show us that so-called Taiwan separatism is not true independence, but it further embroils Taiwan into serving U.S. imperialist interests. True independence means independence from this sort of hegemonic, unequal relationship where you don't even have dignity as a human being. And I think this sort of independence can only be achieved through peaceful reunification with the rest of China.
Peaceful reunification with the rest of China. I mean, how many people know that history?
No, I didn't. And also know that there even is a facet of people inside Taiwan who do actually support this, right? That's not what we're told as Westerners. And given that I can't read any Asian language at all, how would I know this, right? We're told that Taiwan is only under the thumb of China and absolutely wants autonomy.
It's the same thing with Russia. Like, nobody wants a history education. Nobody wants to go read anything or watch anything. Like, I tried sharing videos. Like, you can establish what has happened over the last 14 years with Russia and Ukraine, but people only listen to what they're hearing right now. They don't want a lesson. They don't want to go. There's no nuance. They don't care about that. And that's dangerous because that's what allows our foreign policy to move forward the way it does.
Yes. And also, hi, David. We didn't introduce you into the show. That's our producer, David, who's very passionate. Thank you for joining in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's move on and let's talk more about China. So I have, some more insight, I think, into why Nancy Pelosi was visiting Taiwan. And we learned, actually, just learned this afternoon, that Nancy Pelosi, while she was there for less than 24 hours. Okay. Mm-hmm. But it still didn't stop her from meeting with chip industry leaders in Taipei, Taiwan Semiconductor.
Just weeks after Congress passed the $280 billion CHIPS and Science Act that includes $52 billion in subsidies for companies to build and expand chip manufacturers, many of which are made in Asia, Taiwan and China as well. So interesting, right, that she would do this. And of course, very interesting that we know that she and her husband made a large investment in NVIDIA just months before as this legislation was on the floor.
And Apple. And so all of these companies are tied to Taiwan Semiconductor.
Yes.
Right. So again, all of the companies you're investing in that are computer related, when Nancy Pelosi gets on the phone and calls Tim Cook at Apple, when she has a conversation with Sundar Pichai at Google, when you're talking about Silicon Valley and you're talking about these semiconductors that are coming out of Taiwan, it's all together, right? And then your husband goes and makes a very large investment.
Sure.
I mean, and you in 24 hours managed to go and potentially start World War III and check on your investment strategy while you're there.
Right.
No wonder you didn't bring Republicans with you.
I mean, but if this is an attempt to harm China's semiconductor industry, that's just,
Well, I know it's not an attempt to harm them. I mean, if anything, it's an attempt to solidify a relationship with them. I mean,
well, to solidify a relationship with China?
No, with Taiwan.
Oh no, that I said China, didn't I?
Oh no, you said Taiwan.
If this is meant to harm China's semiconductor business, it's not going to go very far. That's what I don't know if that's what I said, but that's what I meant.
But okay, think about it. So right now, the American manufacturing, they just passed the American CHIPS Act, right? That passed last week.
Yes.
The United States did. It provides $52 billion in support for chip companies that invest in the United States. Okay.
Yes.
So it's aimed at rebuilding the country's chip-making capabilities. It also includes restrictions on investment in China for companies that receive U.S. subsidies. So, okay for TSMC and the Pelosi family to make money off of this on a $52 billion congressional act that is... When she was asked about this the other day, by the way, did you tell your husband at all about this $52 billion investment in semiconductors? She grabs the microphone and she pushes it and she's like, no. Really? Not over dinner? You didn't have any discussion? He just went and made this willy-nilly investment in semiconductors with no discussion with the Speaker of the House?
Okay, I don't know. Sometimes some couples don't share those kind of things, but if
you give for the benefit of the doubt.
I know, and I know that
try
the
to
chat
find the
room
silver lining on
hates
anything
when I do this.
Well, Hitler. I mean, come on, he was a good painter.
Okay, but we're not gonna extrapolate that far, right? Some couples don't talk about these types of things, but you would think because she has to be extra careful with transparency and optics that this would be something that maybe, I don't know. Is it worth it? It depends on financially. It seems that it was.
All too convenient, though.
Yes.
You don't even announce on your public itinerary that you're flying to Taiwan. It's kept off of your House Speaker itinerary. So you're lying to the press. Where are we going? Here are the places we're going. We're going to Singapore, Kuala Lumpur. We're leaving this specific territory off of the list, Taiwan. We just passed a $52 billion wet kiss for the tech industry, right? Because they need a lot of help right now. They're really struggling, by the way. The tech industry is really, really hurting. And then you fly in, and you have less than 24 hours on this island. You manage to meet with chip manufacturers.
But look at what these sanctions that prevent U.S. investment backed by China on hardware have done to the solar panel industry, basically brought it to a screeching halt in the United States because the United States was heavily reliant on China for obtaining those solar panels. And now even Congress admits that investors continued to obtain solar panels from China, but just went around through, I think it was South Korea instead. And so then putting a higher carbon footprint on each solar panel, right? And investors found a workaround because so much technology comes from China. We cannot compete.
It's the solar panel reach around.
Yes.
Meanwhile,
it's a latest craze.
Meanwhile, we learned from Lever News today, David Sirota over at Lever News in reporting, saying that Chuck Schumer's family, so it's not just Nancy Pelosi, and no, maybe wonder why Democrats just went along on this. Chuck Schumer's family and former Wall Street and tech corporations that have legislative business in front of the Senate right now. The world's largest private equity firm just hired his son-in-law as a lobbyist. So these tech companies that have these legislation, so they get to make money off of this. It's such a cozy relationship.
Yes, and it turns out a lot of those companies connected to his son-in-law are his biggest donors as well. I mean, this is, stop me if you've heard this one before, right?
Yeah. No, I'm not going to stop you from it.
Stop me.
But
Well, those are Democrats, though. They represent the people, so it's a little different.
oh, yeah.
Oh, right.
Oh, I don't know if you've gotten word on this. No, literally, the Democratic Party now is officially the war party.
Yes.
Like, how did that happen? Let me take a step back on this. Like, Democrats were supposed to be the party of peace. Like, how dare you, George W. Bush, for getting us involved in a forever war?
Yes.
Right? No, that ship has sailed.
Yes.
Like, that shoe is now on the other foot. That cookie has crumbled.
Uh-huh. That is not a
can't
nice mattress to lay.
You can't. Can you think of another idiom? Is it an idiom?
I can't.
Metaphor? Yes. They buttered their bread now. Can you guys in the chat room, can you guys come up with any more? Yeah. So Nancy Pelosi meeting with semiconductor companies while in Taiwan. We learned that today. You know, the Kingman County and the Kingman Islands surrounded, Taiwan surrounded, live fire drills continuing, going to be continuing for the next few days. And where does this lead? Does this lead then to an invasion of the Kingman Islands, as we pointed out earlier? Does it lead to that first step? Because it's right there. I mean, I think it's within 20 miles or so of the coast of China, of mainland China, a very easy show of force. And then on top of that, you have Russia and Vladimir Putin throwing their support behind China, saying, if you go to war over Taiwan, we're there for you. So now we've managed to really solidify this relationship in just a matter of days. If
It
wasn't
does
already
feel
done.
very much like taking a Sharpie to the globe and just making circles of like, it is now these companies or countries against these. Whether you wanted it or you feel that way or not, that's what global leaders are choosing on our behalf.
Yeah. Hey, we have a daily newsletter. You should all check it out. If you go to redacted.inc, it's something you get delivered first thing in the morning, right to your inbox. Again, redacted.inc. Please subscribe. Oh, I should mention this too on this Thursday night. Please hit that like button while you're watching us. If you're watching us on Rumble, if you're watching us on YouTube, just smash that like button. What do you do on Rumble? You rumble?
Yeah, you rumble.
You rumble. Okay.
Rumble it.
So rumble it. On YouTube, just smash that like button. It pushes us further out into the algorithm because we are being suppressed. And like that interview I just showed you a moment ago, that's why I wanted to mention her YouTube channel over at Li Jing YouTube channel. These voices are being suppressed by big tech. And she said, please share this, please, because it gets shadow banned, it gets suppressed, it gets hidden. Just like Twitter, just like Facebook, all of big tech right now is really clamping down on independent voices and independent news. So when you support us here, that's what you're doing. You're supporting the truth.
Well, and just to solidify that sentiment, I did a poll yesterday and I said, sorry, we lost internet. We're recording the rest of the show and we'll release the recording later. Did you think YouTube took us down? And out of 2,000 votes, 84% thought we were taken down because of what we were talking about. That just shows you people know how bad it is right now.
Yeah, and it was during a COVID-related segment, so obviously I go to
We go to a dark place.
I go to a dark place.
Well, I mean, I have friends, on Telegram who were telling me that they were posting things about what was unfolding in China and Ukraine, and it's being taken down, it's being blocked. I mean, this is not like we are in Soviet level, we are at like Soviet level censorship now. So
Yes.
that's what we're experiencing in the United States of America, land of the free, like land of free speech, right?
It is like, is it Fahrenheit 451, where they tell you 2 + 2 is 5. You must believe it.
Yeah, just believe that.
What?
Yeah.
That's not the reference, but 1984. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's right. That's right. Thank you for getting my apocalyptic literature straight.
We've got more news to get to here on the show. Coming up in just a few minutes, we are going to talk about what's going on in Ukraine. And we've got some unbelievable developments this afternoon on the Ukrainian side as well as on the Russian side. We'll bring those details to you. We're also going to look at the latest on this COVID hearing that unfolded yesterday. Senator Rand Paul taking Dr. Fauci to task on gain-of-function research. So we'll bring you that story and some of the fallout around that. We're also going to look at a UFO story as it relates to Congress, and a big UFO breakthrough, I believe, is unfolding before our eyes. We have a special guest who's going to be joining us from London to talk about the latest on the UFO investigative body in Congress. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Movement. Movement is a company that grew out of a small apartment in Southern California. 2 college dropouts teamed up to create a watch company that broke all of the rules. And now they make great glasses, and I love their sunglasses. So I wear their sunglasses and their reading glasses like every day. And I have one of their beautiful watches that I wear out for like date night. So these guys do amazing things at a price point that will not break the bank. Very, very affordable. And you're going to get 15% off today just when you go to that website. It's mvmt.com/redacted. You have women's jewelry, you have men's jewelry. I got compliments all the time on my glasses. So we were just traveling recently. I had the really classy looking the black sunglasses, and they looked fantastic. And people were like, I love those. You look really
Guapo.
Yeah. And I love the black gunner style watch that I wear when I go out on date night. Big, thick, and it looks fantastic and really affordable. Unbeatable prices. Movement watches have the look and quality of like $500 watches that you're paying for at a department store, but they cost a fraction of the price. So you can support independent journalism. If you're thinking about getting a gift, maybe a back to school gift, something like that, and you want to save 15%, or if you want to get something early for Christmas time, just do it now because you'll get 15% off. Whether it's glasses, a woman's watch, or a men's watch, go check them out. They look absolutely fantastic. They have the Everscroll glasses too, the men's Everscroll. So if you spend a lot of time in front of the computer like I do.
They have women's too.
So these are my Movement glasses, okay? I wear these all day when I'm at my computer, and they have the blue light protection. So it really protects your eye strain and really keeps you from like having poor sleeping patterns when you're staring at blue light from these devices. All right, so I want you to go to mvmt.com/redacted. Movement, mvmt.com/redacted to get 15% off with free shipping and free returns. You have nothing to lose. Go check them out. That's mvmt.com/redacted. Our thanks to them for supporting independent journalism and what we do around this hacienda. So we have a poll up on our website right now, up on the chat room here. And what was the poll question, David, that we asked everyone in the chat?
So I said, do you think the IRS needs more power?
Yes. Do you think the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service in the United States, needs more power? And what does it say right now? What are the results right now?
I have no idea why, but 7% say yes. And 93% say no. So I don't know who the 7% are.
That's Liz Warren. Thanks for watching, Senator Warren.
Bernie Sanders is weighing in tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bernie.
All right, let's talk about Ukraine and some developments in that region. Within 24 hours, President Zelensky has asked the U.S. for more help right? Because we need to continue to open our wallets and send more weapons, no matter where they end up.
And more money, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then he turned around and asked for help from China. Now, just yesterday, we reported that he said, hey, you know, we really would like China to join us in this fun sanctions club and start to sanction Russia. Now he says he really would like to talk with China direct, and specifically President Xi directly, to talk to him about how he could hurt Russia through sanctions, right? And of course, we know China and Russia have really good economic relationships now and in the recent past. And so, of course, China doing something like this would harm Russia, but China has refused to condemn Russia. China has refused to really take a side. Just today, President Vladimir Zelensky said he wants to discuss the Russian invasion of the country with Chinese President Xi Jinping directly, and said he hoped that China might review its attitude towards Russia in light of its invasion of Ukraine.
Okay.
He says, I would like to talk directly. I had one conversation with Xi Jinping that was a year ago. Then he says, since the beginning of this large-scale aggression on February 24th, we have officially asked for a conversation, but we haven't had any conversation with China, even though I think that would be helpful. He turned around and called China a very powerful state.
I mean, how are you reading this without laughing? Because like he literally thinks like Xi Jinping is going to come to his defense right now. Like, hey, I'm trying everything I can. You know, I'm getting money from America and NATO. I'm also going to get support from China. Xi Jinping is going to get on the phone with me and going to send some HIMARS of their own to this region.
Well, my conspiratorial mind went to the place that perhaps the United States asked him to say something like this so that the media would shine a spotlight on China's refusal to help, and we could continue to demonize China.
I like that you're thinking in this way. I hadn't thought of that angle on this because
we
know that
this is just what
we know that Zelensky is a puppet, right? And that he doesn't say anything that's not already like handed to him.
That's sort of where that came from.
That's where your conspiratorial mind went on this. So here's the second quote in this piece. He says, I'm confident and I'm sure that without the Chinese market for the Russian Federation, Russia would be feeling complete economic isolation, Zelensky told the Post. That's something that China can do to limit the trade with Russia until the war is over. Okay, like if you know anything about China's Belt and Road Initiative, you know it has far-reaching tentacles, both from rail lines and roadways and relationships and currency and what Russia and the BRICS nations, China, India, South Africa, and Brazil just agreed to, basically, a solidification of a reserve currency that goes against the United States dollar as the world reserve currency.
Right.
You're basically asking China to throw in the towel on this economically, like to literally put in like trade sanctions or block trade with Russia.
Yes. And then also, well, so much of this war is funded on the US dollar, right? And so why would China do something to further strengthen the dollar when we are at a Cold War? A nasty one, like a hot one.
Maybe it's now it's like a hot
war.
It's like turning hot now.
Yeah.
Forget being a Cold War. It's now a hot war. We've seen what's happening over the past few days. Meanwhile, like another really interesting angle in Ukraine is what Amnesty International did over the past 24 hours, which Amnesty International, we've been waiting for them to weigh in on this. They tweeted this and wrote an entire dossier basically about Ukraine. Here it is. Ukrainian forces have put civilians in harm's way, they say, by establishing bases and operating weapons systems in populated residential areas. Holy shit.
Okay.
Are you kidding me?
We got a community strike on YouTube for saying that there were extremists inside the Ukrainian army that were purposely putting civilians in harm's way because we were listening to independent journalists who were there, right?
The evidence was overwhelming.
Amnesty International has sent independent researchers and found this too. So they say they have witnessed. Can I refer to this now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's the
They
article.
have witnessed Ukrainian forces putting civilians in harm's way by establishing bases and operating weapon systems in populated residential areas, including in schools and hospitals, and as they repelled the Russian invasion that began in February. The report goes on, most residential areas where soldiers located themselves were kilometers away from front lines. Viable alternatives were available that would not endanger civilians, such as military bases. So think about that. Like, you could choose to set up your army at a military base, but instead you choose a kindergarten, right? Or densely wooded areas also were available, or other structures farther away from residential areas. In the cases documented, Amnesty International is not aware that the Ukrainian military, who located themselves in civilian structures in residential areas, asked or assisted civilians to evacuate nearby buildings, a failure to take all feasible precautions to protect civilians. So they are, in fact, setting up in these areas and using civilians, right? Civilians are getting harmed. And this quote from the Secretary General of Amnesty International says, being in a defensive position does not exempt the Ukrainian military from respecting international humanitarian law, which requires all parties to avoid locating within densely populated areas. This matters.
Now, we've had journalists here on the show who've been covering this for months, right? They've been blocked, they've been banished, you name it, right? But they've continued on in their amazing work.
They've been personally attacked, called conspiracy theorists, put on like this big NBC hit piece calling them crazy, right? Because they live in this region and are talking about this aggression towards Ukrainian people
for the last 8 years.
Well, and on Zelensky's kill list.
Yes. In fact, Scott Ritter just published a piece yesterday on this strike list. Like, it exists. And finally, the international community is waking up to what we've been reporting here for months. And,
well,
and it's
remember,
been called
we showed
Russian
that video.
propaganda and all of this stuff, right? We showed a video, maybe you're going to say the same thing I was, which is
Yep, I was.
kindergarten teachers, right? It was kindergarten teachers, preschool teachers who were yelling. They are Ukrainian teachers, and they were yelling at the soldiers, like, why are you putting these weapons on our roof? There's a field over there. Go to the field. Use the field. Please don't use our preschool. And why? It's used basically as a human shield. Like,
Yes.
That's the idea that you're using. And I see people in the chat saying exactly that it's human shields.
And plus, it makes the American propaganda a lot more, like, they can say, oh, Russia attacked schools.
Yes.
But they leave out the nuance.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Well, and many people, I just saw someone in the chat yesterday saying, why are we all, bashing Ukraine and celebrating Russia? That's not what we're doing. We're trying to figure out what Ukraine is actually doing with the weapons and the money that we send, because the longer we drag this war out, the more children, civilians, women, and families will be killed, right? This matters because the United States government has known for months that there are years that there are extremists inside the Ukrainian military. They've known and still freely open their wallets, pretend that doesn't exist. It matters when we support an ongoing war and delay peace talks, right? Because we dig our heels in the sand. People are dying. Peace talks right now, today.
So what are we doing, right? We are continuing to funnel. So NATO over the past 24 hours, Finland and Sweden now, the United States Congress in an unanimous vote. One person held out. It was Senator Josh Hawley, to not allow them in, only for a procedural reason. Like, he's like, we should be focused on China. But he was all in on it, right? So overwhelming. Now, we expanding NATO funneling weapons like crazy, and billions of dollars in weapons into Ukraine, right? So what has been happening to those weapons? Well, now we know, as the Eastern Front has been totally collapsing, that civilian areas are being hit with NATO weapons. So money that you are paying, if you happen to live in a NATO country, and your money, your tax dollars, going to support this, these weapons are going into Ukrainian civilian areas. I want to play a video. This is from this morning. These are NATO weapons that they've analyzed going into civilian areas. Going to play it. Watch. That's a Russian. That's a Ukrainian shell.
Тип снаряда. Тип снаряда? Ну, в смысле, да, что в 155-х.
See the press there? That's a NATO standard. That's a NATO standard shell. The eastern front of Ukraine is collapsing. Ukraine is getting desperate. Continued bombings of residential areas, including playgrounds and schools, are unfolding at this area. Ukrainian troops shelled the Donetsk Drama Center yesterday. Here is a video of this. This is the Donetsk Drama Center, and blurred out bodies in the background. So blurred out. You can see those. But yes, this is again. These are civilian areas, shopping districts, playgrounds, the continued shelling in this area as this, total collapse is unfolding. There's no reason for this at all. Eva Bartlett, I spoke to her this afternoon. She is in a hotel that was attacked this morning, bombed this morning. So again, I love it when journalists sit in New York City, and they write these articles that are full of propaganda, but they're not true. We saw that with NBC. NBC did that hit piece on these journalists. They're not even there. They're not even in the region, and they're not even physically there. These journalists are in a hotel that's being bombed as we speak. So
was she in there when it was bombed? Is she okay?
Yeah, she's okay. I spoke to her this afternoon.
Jeez.
We were going to do an interview this afternoon, but it's obviously that's her safety is more important than an interview. But she did send notes this afternoon on what's been unfolding. So here I'm going to put up a message she sent earlier. Over the past 24 hours from 8 a.m. on August 3rd to 8 a.m. on August 4th, as a result of shelling of the VFU in the territory of Donetsk People's Republic, 2 people were killed. Another 15 civilians were injured, 4 of them blown up by those pedal mines, which we'll get to in a minute. Those PFM mines, these pedal mines we'll get to. Then she goes on to say, Ukraine has been shelling central Donetsk since an hour and a half ago. It died down. People went inside to document the went outside to document the damage. It started up again about 5 minutes ago. I waited before writing about this, but by now it's all over the media. A dead woman lies outside the hotel. And I want to just show you some of the areas that she witnessed this afternoon or earlier today. Playgrounds that are being attacked. Under what circumstances would you attack a playground? Like, these are playgrounds. Look at this. There's a teeter-totter and NATO shells there. Can we go back to those? Sorry. Go back to this playground.
The seesaw.
Seesaw.
It's the same thing. I'm just teasing.
Teeter-totter, slide. Deliberately targeting these, playgrounds.
Civilian areas,
areas. Under what circumstances? No Russian army around.
And consistent with the Amnesty International reporting, since they are then sending investigators in, she has documented Russian troops actually evacuating places that had civilians, unlike the Ukrainian army, right? Mm-hmm. And she has been attacked for that as well.
So I want to talk about these pedal mines. And we need to talk about these because this is a violation of international law, right? This is specifically what Amnesty International is talking about. So I want to play this footage here. We'll play, yes, that video there. I'm going to play this, sound up full. This is Eva Bartlett's coverage. What this guy, before I play it, let me set the stage for this, okay? What this guy is doing, he's using a rubber tire, to explode some of these mines that are just scattered around the neighborhood by the Ukrainian army, just scattered around residential areas and so forth. And this individual saw an old man with like a stick, old men walk with canes and stuff. They're always walking around the streets and staying high to feed. He was about to poke it with his cane, and he would have been blown up as a result. He yelled and stopped him from doing it. And then he exploded the mine. You can see how little pressure it takes for these things to explode. This is Eva Bartlett's reporting. Watch.
Keep your eyes down. That's the advice walking around Donetsk now, after Ukraine fired missiles containing butterfly or petal mines last night. They litter the streets, parks, apartment courtyards. They are everywhere. And because of their small size and neutral color, they're easy to miss. One fatal step and that's your foot or leg gone.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
So they're so tiny.
Well,
Do you
think
see
about
them?
like curious kids.
Well,
Yeah.
that's exactly it.
You couldn't let your kids
I
go
saw
outside.
a picture. Yeah, I saw a picture of one that she shared that it was surrounded by a bunch of leaves, and you could not discern it from the leaves. Like you would have been walking through a pile of leaves and stepping on those things.
Yeah, exactly. And they, the thing is, they explode with such force that they're not going to kill a man. They'll take your leg off, but they won't kill a man. But a kid goes up and plays with them, it's instant. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. So we have some photos, close-ups, so you can see a little bit closer what these things look like. I mean, they're hard to see. They look like leaves, right? And they take very little pressure to activate. And again, these are a violation of international law. See them just scattered around. They throw them right into residential areas. Here's the size of it. You can see next to a lighter to give you a sense of how big these things are.
And so she points out that because they are in this plastic casing, they are undetectable by metal detectors. So even if you sent out troops to try and find them, it would have to be quite a manual process with a very dangerous failure rate.
Right. Just awful. I mean, they are a violation. They are prohibited by the Ottawa Convention, which was ratified by Ukraine. So Ukraine put their stamp of approval on this, ratified by Ukraine. And this is what's happening in that area. As, again, we covered the prison angle on this. We went on retread it from last night. But now we have word today from Russia saying that they have proof in reports in the press this afternoon. Russia says they have proof that the prison where the Ukrainian soldiers were being held was bombed by the Zelensky government. And we have separate confirmation from sources who were there and we spoke to in that area. And interviews like this are starting to cause major trouble for Zelensky when you have soldiers who are now speaking out about what they were forced to do, forced into becoming a soldier. They didn't even want to be.
Yes.
Forced, that's one piece of it. And then also to carry out horrible things that they were having to do against the people.
And not
civilians.
trained for any of that.
Yeah. Awful. So I'm going to be speaking to Eva Bartlett more on this in the coming days once she is safe and in a location where I can speak with her about that. But unbelievable update from Amnesty International on Ukraine and Zelensky asking for Xi Jinping of China for help on that front. So we've got more news to get to here on the show. We're going to look at this COVID hearing. I don't know if you saw any of the highlights from Rand Paul talking about gain-of-function research, but we've got more details on this and the scientists who are now speaking out about how this lab leak may have unfolded and why it's being kept from the American people. Like, why are they hiding it? Not just from the American people, from people all around the world. Like, why are they hiding it from us? So we'll talk about that.
Yes, and then we are also going to talk about the IRS and whether or not you want H&R Block type service from irs.gov. A lot of it is laughable.
In our chat right now, in our comments, we have a live poll that's up. If you're watching us on YouTube, it's a live poll. Do you want the IRS to have more power? What does the polls currently stand at?
We're at 93% still at no and 7% at yes with 28. It keeps going up, about 2,900 votes.
Thank you for voting. And I can't wait to read your comments when we actually get to that story.
So my fellow Americans, if you have an IRA or 401k or a savings account, things are scary out there right now. The Biden administration is already printed more money in the past 2 years than the previous 100 years combined. They have an inflation plan right now. This is what the United States government has planned for you, which is a new inflation plan. And here's how they plan to combat inflation, does the Democrats in Congress. They want to spend billions of dollars to combat inflation. They're going to print more government money in order to combat inflation. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. So if you've got your money in US dollars, or if you've got your money in fiat currency, like we see in the UK today, mortgage rates skyrocketing, inflation skyrocketing. Just look at Turkey, for instance, over 80% inflation in Turkey right now. So because we have to continue to support Ukraine, right? So you need to pay more for just about everything. If you have a retirement or savings account, your money could be at serious risk. Talk to our friends over at Goldco to see how you can protect your retirement with gold and silver before it's too late. If you go to redactedlikesgold.com, that's the website, then you can get up to $10,000 or more in free silver when you open a qualifying account. So again, go to Redacted, likesgold.com, get up to $10,000 in free silver when you open a qualifying account. I heard from a bunch of you that have signed up and you started buying some precious metals. Smart move. You know, again, it's not about really growing your wealth. You know, gold is going to continue to go up. We could see it hit $2,500 an ounce, but it's about preserving your wealth. And gold and silver and precious metals have sustained for 4,000 years through famine and wars and everything else. But every government currency in world history has collapsed. All of them. What makes you think the United States dollar won't? Or the euro or the pound won't? It will. At some point, it will. So protect yourself with gold and silver. So redactedlikesgold.com is the place to go to be supportive and to protect your family.
Also, I highly recommend the book Layered Money if you want to read about the history of money and the history of every government's collapse. Really fascinating read, and another reason why you should definitely diversify your portfolio with real things.
All right, let's talk about this COVID hearing. And appearing on Fox News to discuss the first ever Senate hearing on gain-of-function research, Senator Rand Paul held a committee hearing on this. I can't believe it was the first ever hearing on this, and which was really supposed to understand and oversee the experimentation of these lethal viruses. Like, what are we doing with this? Why are we spending money on this? How, like, what governments are actually paying attention to this? How is Anthony Fauci and the National Institutes of Health taking taxpayer dollars to create modified gene-disrupting viruses in labs and, oh, by the way, leaking them?
Yes.
They get out and then kill millions of people. Like, shouldn't we have some sort of an oversight on all of that? So here is Rand Paul setting up what he was about to do yesterday, and we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of this. Here he is on gain-of-function research. Listen.
Gain-of-function research is a controversial scientific research method involving the manipulation of pathogens to give them a new aspect or ability, such as making viruses more transmissible or dangerous to humans. Despite all we have learned about the potential risks of this particular method of research, this is the first congressional hearing on this subject since the pandemic began. Today we will discuss what gain-of-function research entails, how gain-of-function research is defined, and whether the definition of gain-of-function research is applied consistently by the Department Health and Human Services P3CO Review Committee. This is a committee that was set up to study potential pandemic pathogens.
Okay, I'm listening.
Well, it gets better.
It's definitely time to ask those questions.
It gets better because then he wants to know, like, look, the American people deserve to know this. I mean, would you say, if you're watching right now, do you think we deserve, or the world, not if you're, I'm just speaking to Americans because it's the Senate. But,
and because it's taxpayer funded.
Right. Do you think we have a right to know? Like, let us know in the comments section. Do we have a right to know what they're doing with this money? What biolabs they're working on? Like, you were denying the fact that we had biolabs in Ukraine, dozens of them, until
Senate testimony.
Yeah,
confirmed.
until we found out and confirmed it. So again, don't we have a right to know? And this is exactly what Rand Paul had to say. Listen.
I maintain that the techniques that the NIH funded in Wuhan to create enhanced pathogens may have or could have been used to create COVID-19. The American people deserve to know how this pandemic started and to know if the NIH funded research that may have caused this pandemic. Gain-of-function research has the potential to unleash a global pandemic that threatens the lives of millions. Yet this is the first time the issue has been discussed in a congressional committee.
Don't we have a right to know?
Yes. Absolutely. And the chat room is overwhelmingly saying, yes, we do have a right to know. What he further goes on to say is that these committees exist, but this information was never given to Congress.
Right. How is this not given to Congress? Like, how is this information that's using taxpayer dollars not given to Congress? How is there no congressional oversight of this? His main point is, of course, that we should protect and not have this happen again.
Right. I mean, Congress has the power to subpoena information. So this gives me another follow-up question is, why haven't they been asking?
Right. Brian Vesco in our chat says, ban all gain-of-function research, make it illegal with life sentences to violators. I like that idea. You're literally taking and manipulating things that are, that occur naturally, and you're making them unnatural.
Now, Rand Paul has gone viral for asking Dr. Fauci about gain of function. And, it became fun to poke fun of him on Twitter, like, oh, come on, he's picking on Fauci, right? Depending on what side you really were on. But he goes on to further say, Dr. Fauci, when we've been asking about this, has been lying.
There is no dispositive evidence the pandemic began as a spillover of a natural virus in a market. All evidence is consistent with a laboratory-acquired infection. SARS-2 has features consistent with synthetic biology gain-of-function research. In 2018, U.S. and WIV scientists proposed inserting, quote, human-specific furin cleavage sites in a bat virus backbone. 2 years later, SARS-2 appeared on the WIV doorstep.
Kentucky Senator Rand Paul headed today's hearing, and he joins me now. So, Senator, what did you learn from these experts?
I know this is going to be shocking, but we learned that Dr. Fauci has been lying to us. The 3 scientists agreed that this was dangerous research. 2 out of the 3 absolutely said it was gain of function. The 3rd said it was dangerous research and should have gone before a committee. When Dr. Fauci said, oh, we've reviewed this and the experts have looked at this and said it's not gain of function, even that wasn't true. There was a committee that was formed after 2017 to look at this dangerous research. They didn't look at this research at all because they never reviewed it. So no one reviewed this to say it wasn't gain-of-function research. They didn't review it, period. We also learned from these scientists today that the committee that is supposed to review these viruses is secret. We don't know the names. We don't know whether they ever meet, and we don't have any records of their meetings. It's top secret. Congress is not allowed to know. So whether the committee actually exists, we're uncertain.
Can you believe that?
That's outrageous.
We're not allowed to know. It almost sounds like UFO level stuff, right?
Well, and to me, it's like even a little bit more nefarious because, like, if you look at all of this and the fact that Fauci lies, so like if somebody lies once, generally they've lied before. And in 2017, Fauci was warning Donald Trump that there would not that it was possible, but there would be a global pandemic and that they needed to be prepared. How was he so confident that there would be? And if this is true, then wouldn't that point to that's why he was that confident?
I'll even go one step further. I mean, they talked about this. The World Economic Forum talked about this and planned for this. They knew this in August. At their meetings, we're discussing this.
Of 2019?
Yeah. How did they know this?
Mm-hmm.
How did they know this months ahead of time? How are they able to specifically say that during Trump's administration, there will be a pandemic?
Yes.
There will be. Specifically, there will be. How do you plan for that? And of course, Dr. Fauci laughs it off, won't do interviews. We covered the story here yesterday, how
he refused to come on The Rising with the one anchor who wanted to ask questions such as these.
Right.
Yes. And, this comes on the heels of now the United States is about to announce a national emergency or a public health emergency over monkeypox. And all of us are kind of curious about what that will mean, right? Will it mean lockdowns? Because I do not want to stay home with my children again. Because of the risk of monkeypox, please, God, no. Or does it just mean that now we can access those stockpiles of TPOXX and other vaccines that seem to have some efficacy from smallpox? We don't know, right? But it's hard to trust what is going to happen when it comes to any public health emergency at this point.
I mean, the thought that we would have, again, I think that's what we're going towards as we head into the fall. I mean, I have a conspiracy theory about it, maybe not even a conspiracy, which is, hey, Democrats are in deep trouble, right? Democrats heading into the midterm elections are in deep shit right now. It's no secret, right? And so they need all the help they can get. And President Biden, it was stunning to even see that even when he announced the death of al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri the other day, you thought, typically in that situation, you'd have a president's approval rating goes up, right?
Yeah.
We took out a terrorist. Approval rating goes up. Nothing. It went the opposite direction. And so heading into the fall, get people mandates, get people new stimulus checks.
Yeah.
Send out a couple $1,000s in stimulus checks. We have to go under lockdowns. Here's President Biden's signature on a stimulus check. You need all the help you can get going into the fall.
Sure.
I mean, what else are they going to do?
I don't know. Although Nate Silver's 538 blog now puts Democrats at a 58% chance of maintaining power in Congress, and that seemed high.
He has been wrong. I mean, he was heralded as being like the guy who got I don't know, figured it out a couple of years ago, but he has been wrong ever since. And he's made some ridiculous statements over the past few years. 58% that Democrats remain in power.
That seemed really high. And, to put that in perspective, though, most presidents lose the midterm election after 2 years after election. Most presidents lose party control of the Senate. Barack Obama did, Bill Clinton did. Like, this is just sort of normal turn of history. But it is not a normal term of history, considering that we're leaving a pandemic. We've got a new war. Inflation rates are high, right? So 58% does seem like fiction.
Yeah. I mean, so again, if we head into another round of lockdowns, we're already talking about emergencies in New York. We're talking about states of emergencies in Illinois, in California. The list is starting to grow, and they're all happening in Democratic areas, of course, Democratic governors, Democratic Mayor Eric Adams of New York City. Go ahead.
I don't know if you've seen John Campbell's coverage, but he's talking, there's a specific community of people that this is actually affecting, and you can't even talk about that because you will be, like, we could be banned for talking about it on here, the community that deserves to know because it is something that affects them. But if you watch John Campbell's coverage of it, he talks it.
Yeah.
I don't know how he gets away with talking about everything. I think it's his delivery and his credentials maybe, but we probably couldn't.
Okay, so let's not.
Yeah, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
I'm not.
Sure.
I know exactly what you're saying. And it's like, we can write about it in our newsletter.
Yeah.
It's our newsletter at redacted.inc. In fact, someone wrote me this afternoon and said, I love your newsletter. It's too bad that what you say in the newsletter is something you can't even say sometimes on YouTube.
There was a story this morning
they'll block us
about a pediatric study that I wanted to bring to this show. If you read the newsletter, you know what this is about. And I don't dare because of the way that people are canceled for this sensitive topic. So if you know, you know.
Right.
But I...
Zip it.
Yeah.
Zip it.
Yep.
I like my job. I'm going to stay right
If you're
here.
listening to the audio version of the show, she was zipping it. So again, Rand Paul, making these conversations, he went on the rising, by the way. He went on and was not afraid to answer questions and was basically asked some tough questions about his congressional testimony and was able to point out this morning, he was able to say, Dr. Fauci said that in research was reviewed and found to be safe by experts. That was a lie. Then he continued to call out Dr. Fauci, who wouldn't go on to be interviewed unless he had specific anchors that he knew might ask him softball questions. So this is what we're dealing with. This is the censorship. This is the hidden agenda of Washington that continues to hide this stuff. So get ready for the next pandemic because it's coming up, guys.
I mean, if they want us to trust them, this is not the way. Just seems kind of obvious to say that.
That's right. Do you have the anthem? Because I don't have it. You put in the wrong thing here. But
I do not. I apologize.
Go ahead and do that. While you do that, I want to tell you about our newsletter. If you go to redacted.inc, redacted.inc is our daily newsletter. All the cool kids are on it. I'm going to show you the website. Do we have like a little? We need to make like an animation for it, like a nice website sign up form thing, to show people what that process looks like. Here we go. So here's what it looks like. You can take the website. Here's when you go to redacted.inc, this is what the website looks like. Just click on the newsletter button right here. Again, it's totally free. You sign up and you'll receive a welcome email from me. My email will come to your inbox. So yes, my email is clayton@redacted.inc. That's my email address right down there. You can add it to your VIP. If you want to send me a note and say hello, I will read it. I get hundreds of emails a day, but I try to go through them all. So if you want to send me a note, you can do that. Clayton@redacted.inc is the place to go and do that. I
love we got a super chat from Leo that says message redacted, but I'm with you.
With you. That's right. All right. Well, do you own a small business and you need help growing it? Then AnthemSoftware.com is your one-stop solution. Anthem Software helps small businesses all over America find, serve, and keep more customers profitably by providing world-class CRM software and results-focused marketing services. Your business will not only grow, but will dominate in this highly competitive modern world. That's AnthemSoftware.com. Every business has a song. Let AnthemSoftware.com help you sing yours. Again, visit AnthemSoftware.com to schedule your free demo of their amazing solution. So it's AnthemSoftware.com. We've got more news to get to. We're going to look at the very latest on the IRS. We're also going to look at this UFO story as a major announcement from the Senate and the House of Representatives. Will bring you the very latest on that story.
Well, we want to tell you about how Congress now wants to give more power to the Internal Revenue Service to police basically the middle class, although it's clearly not being reframed as that. A new reconciliation package from Senator Joe Manchin includes $80 billion in funding for the IRS. Now, Congress continues to try and shove this $80 billion towards the IRS. It was in the Build Back Better bill that is pretty much dead. It was in the American Families Act that has not been passed. They're desperate to get this money to the IRS. So some are calling this a way to weaponize the IRS. And
some being me.
Yes, we are too, but also the Wall Street Journal.
That's when I heard the story. I'm like, this is like you're literally taking a political organization, you're taking an arm of the executive branch, and you're weaponizing it against your political enemies.
Well, yes, and let me explain that a little bit further. So this is $80 billion of your taxpayer dollars meant to police your tax reporting. Right? So obviously you have the right to feel some kind of way about that. I don't feel good about it. The current operating budget of the IRS is about $12.6 billion per year. So that $80 billion would be divvied up over 9 years, giving the IRS an extra almost $9 billion per year. So that's like almost a 2/3 raise, right? 9 out of 3. Yes, 2/3. Now, according to the Wall Street Journal, the bill earmarks $45.6 billion for enforcement, including litigation, criminal investigations, investigative technology, digital asset monitoring, okay, and a new fleet of tax collector cars, presumably Volvos.
Hold on a second. Keep that up on the screen. So, tax collector cars. So, like, we're going to see a fleet of, like, tax collector cars driving around?
At first I thought, okay, what are they going to do? Like, where are they going to drive to? But then I figure, well, this does make it easier than doing a per mile deduction, right? On your own car, and the IRS doesn't want to deal with that shit. So,
well, I hope they don't. I hope they don't mark them. They don't put on the side of the car like IRS, because it's going to be like open to violence. Like, can you imagine like you're going to pull up in a neighborhood and here's an IRS car pulls up?
I would really have to stop myself.
Well, and they're saying car.
Yeah.
But I wonder if they mean like more like, because I don't know if you guys have ever seen, if you search Google or YouTube, you can see where IRS agents in like full SWAT gear that says IRS on them going into people's houses. So they already have like a SWAT type team. So are these going to be like military cars?
Humvees, an IRS Humvee full of filing cabinets.
All right, you don't like my Volvo selection?
Volvo?
It just seems so like
it's
practical.
boxy.
I mean, if it was a station wagon, maybe.
It's boxy, but it's good.
Yes. Okay. But then look at, of course, enforcement, litigation, criminal investigation. This one gives me pause. The screen that was just up, Philip, if you could go back to investigative technology and digital asset monitoring.
Yeah.
That makes me uncomfortable, right?
So
we've talked
crypto.
many times about how, about how the IRS wants to get you to report even microtransactions like Venmoing someone for a bill or what have you, and that they want to be able to tax even the smallest transactions. And clearly they want to be able to not give you the benefit of the doubt for reporting those things. So what will the return of investment for this $5.6 billion enforcement budget. Well, the bill estimates that all of this tax policing would bring the United States up to $200 billion in additional revenue, but not from the super wealthy, like politicians like to say that they're after, right? According to the Journal, the main targets will be, by necessity, be the middle and upper middle class, because that's where the money is. The Joint Committee on Taxation, Congress's official tax scorekeeper, says that 78 to 90% of the money raised from underreported income would likely come from those making less than $200,000 a year. Only 4 to 9% would come from those making more than $500,000. Well, why, right? Why wouldn't the IRS go after the bigger fish to get bigger payouts? Well, that's because small businesses don't have time to litigate and would rather sort of settle up when the tax man comes knocking. And because more often,
they have no choice.
They do have a choice. They can litigate, but
what I'm saying is they can't afford to litigate, so they don't have a choice.
Right. But the IRS loses more of its litigation than it wins. Did you know this?
I didn't, but I'm not surprised, because C-level accountants work at the IRS. We have a great accountant who said,
this is a Tom Wheelwright quote. This is not Clayton provoking.
This is not me provoking, but yes. What does he say? He says that if he says you should, if you're, what does he say? He said if you're an accountant that works at the IRS, you're likely a C-level, or you're like a C-class.
He says that most IRS accountants are usually like C-level accounting students, accounting graduates, and that really you should aim for yourself to have an A student, because then when they go to battle for you in an audit, your A guy is going to be more and usually knows the code better than the C guy.
And if you work at this, and if you work at the IRS, like if you're a good accountant, you're going to have your own firm, or you're going to work at a good accounting firm. You're not going to work at the IRS.
Well, okay.
According to Tom Wheelwright.
Okay. But I do want to give you this statistic, because apparently when the IRS does, when the IRS does litigate, they lose over half of their cases. So in 2019, the IRS only won $1.7 billion of the $4 billion that it litigated, meaning more people won than lost.
Why is that? It's just that their cases are bunk?
No, absolutely not. It's because wealthy people are harder to litigate because they have good tax lawyers, right? They have solid tax strategies. They have answers when it's like, why did you take this deduction this way or in this year? Or why did you use accrual accounting method here? And they're ready for it, right? And they're ready to answer complicated questions, and they will fight you. Right. Whereas the middle and lower class, I hate using the word lower class, the middle class and below, I guess, won't litigate. They have no choice but to just pay up when an audit comes. They don't fight, even if they think they might be right? And so here's another statistic, though, that will sort of set your hair on fire. With all of this, IRS beefing up, give them more money, will taxpayers at least get better service? Because if you've ever called the IRS with a question, it's like hell, right? So no, we're not going to get any better customer service, even though last year President Biden said that Americans should be owed better customer service on, for instance, Medicare, Medicaid, the IRS. No, this bill only sets aside $3.2 billion for taxpayer services out of that 80. And so, it's going to be the same. The IRS says that in the 2022 tax filing season, it only answered 10% of calls.
Yeah.
And as of June was 21.3 million returns behind.
So where does, Senator Elizabeth Warren has been beating the drum on the IRS for a while now. She's been saying we're going to go after the billionaires, the top 1%. That's where the money is. We're going to get them to pay their fair share. That's how we're going to solve all of our problems. Right? That's going to solve all of our problems. It'll solve inflation. It'll solve
her idea is in this bill. Let's listen to what David has to say and then what Senator Warren.
Well, real quick, do you remember the amount that it said they were going to start taxing now? Remember, like they were like, we're going to start taxing this low amount. They're like, we're going to go after the wealthy, but they're like, but we're going to start tracking transactions of what I think it was a low number. I don't think it was $600. I think it was even lower than that. Do you remember?
Recollection was 500 and 500.
Yeah, I think 500 sounds right. Yeah, we're going to start tracking,
and that's the wealthy.
That's the wealthy.
Yeah.
Right. We always know that this is going to disproportionately hit the lower and middle class. Right? That's exactly what this.
I mean, Jeff Bezos wipes his butt with $500 bills, so that's not going to hurt him.
Do they have $500 bills?
I don't know. I've never
just
seen
on toilet paper.
Just on toilet paper. So anyway, here's Senator
they're
Elizabeth
only
Warren.
for rich butt wiping.
So anyway, here's Senator Elizabeth Warren. Take a listen.
Over the next decade, IRS will fail to collect an estimated $7.5 trillion in taxes owed. That's money we're leaving on the table under current law, money that could be invested in childcare, education, a whole bunch of other priorities. So let me ask you, Commissioner Reddick, one of the best tools the IRS has to ensure that people are paying their taxes is to audit them, check their numbers, force them to pay up if they're cheating. But since 2010, audit rates have fallen nearly 60% overall, and they've fallen nearly 80% for taxpayers with more than $10 million in income. Why has the audit rate fallen most sharply for the richest taxpayers?
In the last decade, our enforcement personnel, we've lost 17,000 enforcement personnel. So we have 17,000 fewer people to do exactly what you're asking. And the point is, we actually have 6,500. That's our population that go after the high-income taxpayers, the most egregious cases in the corporate world. So if you were to add 17,000 to 6,500, I think you'd see a reversal in those numbers.
So he's saying, actually, this is to Tom Wheelwright's point, is that like good auditors are leaving the IRS. We've lost 17,000 of them, right? He goes on to say, this is the IRS Commissioner Reddick. He says that, but we're encouraged that Congress seems to understand that we need more money and need more audit power. So we think that that will be reversed. Now, when she says, all of this lost tax revenue could go towards childcare and education, that's a don't make me laugh type thing, because does she not know how money is spent in the federal government? Take a look at this chart showing exactly where taxpayer dollars go. Education and childcare is not very high on that priority list. So, she's asking us to increase our taxation so that we can invest in these things that we don't currently invest in.
Keep this up on the screen. This is unbelievable, right? I mean, again, I come back to, I even think that looks low.
Well, this is discretionary spending. This is spending that Congress has the right to allocate, right? It can change in any given year. This is not just sort of concrete spending, but at the same time, right, for her to say it's such a shame that we don't have all these tax dollars because we otherwise would do XYZ is really infuriating, especially in a year when they haven't done XYZ or even got close to it when Democrats are in power.
Right. I mean, and this money goes, like someone in the chat just says, this money's going all to Ukraine. Jennifer Brown in the chat says it's all going to Ukraine.
And so her solution, which actually there's $15 million in this reconciliation package set aside, is she wants to set up like an H&R Block type service that is in IRS.com. So basically you upload all of your, W-2s and 1099s and deductible receipts, and then the site calculates, just like H&R Block or TurboTax, calculates what you owe, and then you just have to pay it. There would be, and so you want to give the federal government the right to calculate that for you? That's a hard no.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure they're going to be honest about it.
Well,
right?
Yeah. I mean, if you've ever used those software programs, you know that it will say, we think you owe this. And you're like, oh, but this deduction, but I think this should be deducted from this. Maybe you didn't. Right. And so the best way to really optimize your taxation is to work with a really brilliant tax accountant. And so we think that the IRS's own H&R Block tax filing system is going to give us really good tax planning and tax advice on like, well, you could take this deduction. Do you have, no, right? And then what if you overpay? Could you appeal and get your money back after the first 21.3 million returns are got to,
No,
whenever that
not.
will be, right? And then also another thing that I'm just concerned about, because I know we continue to mention Tom Wheelwright, who has a new book out, by the way. Check it out.
He's an excellent accountant, by the way. He's an amazing
His
accountant.
his
Brilliant.
book, Tax-Free Wealth, it really opened my eyes to how wealthy people think about taxation. It is not at all about tax avoidance. The tax code is written by Congress to encourage people to build businesses, right? So it's a whole different type of mindset. It's not about going after people who don't don't pay tax. It's about making sure that people are optimizing. Anyway, he says that you really should never give the IRS your bank account information. And so this idea that we would like invest in this software where they would automatically calculate your returns and then either auto deduct or auto deposit your refund, I'm a hard no on that as well. Because, the federal government having the right to dip into and out of your bank account, especially in a high inflationary year, you just never know. I know a lot of people do that so they get their refunds back quicker. And he really thinks that's dangerous. And I do too. So I wait for the checks in the mail.
Yeah. And again, he also,
You know what I think frustrates?
Go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead. I was going to say what frustrates me most about this whole thing is how much Elizabeth Warren hates Donald Trump, but she appears to be streaming from his apartment.
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't see that.
It did look rather
did you notice that?
gold.
I missed that.
Yeah, like a gold pillar, and
I think what sucks about this whole thing is for the average American, they who put up the good fight, they work hard, they're working not just one job but two jobs, right? They use a service like H&R Block or one of these other services, and they get screwed.
Yeah.
The tax code is so onerous. The people that work W-2 jobs are screwed the most, right? They get screwed the most. They pay the highest in taxes. And so now you're going to enforce the IRS to go after these people even more when the entire United States government is just one corrupt machine at this point, funneling $860 billion to the United States military industrial complex and more than that. That's just the one bill. Like, we know the billions per week to bombs and to Raytheon and to Lockheed Martin and Boeing, and the American people just get crushed. It really is just troubling. We had a poll that we put up earlier in the show. Let's get our results of this poll. What was the poll question again?
The poll question was, do you think that the IRS should be given more power? And it was 93% yes, 7% no. 7% yes, 93% no out of about 3,500 votes.
So I would love to know the 7%.
Right. Why you want to give the IRS more power. Maybe either of those are enemy voters or I don't know.
Clicked it.
What's that?
So we might have had some trolls and some accidental clicks.
You never know.
That's what I'm going to,
I don't know. there are people who buy into the political line that like we need to go after wealthy tax dodgers, right? But that's not what they're really going to do. They're really going to come after if they do get the personnel and those fancy Volvos.
I think we can figure out. I think what we should do is we should launch some "I Heart the IRS" T-shirts in the store, and whoever buys them, we know who that 7% was.
There we go. We'll flush them out.
It's people that work at the IRS. Like they'll buy their own IRS T-shirts. Let us know your thoughts on that in the chat below. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and we have a daily newsletter. If you go to redacted.inc, is the place to go to sign up for our newsletter. Redacted.inc. Well, guess what? If you want to get 10 free stocks right now, valued up to $25,000, that's right. You can actually get up to $25,000 in stocks if you open a Moomoo account using our link right there on the screen, which is redacted.inc/Moomoo. You have to add the Moomoo onto it for it. I know it says redacted.inc, but just do /Moomoo, and then you'll get access to those additional stocks. It's a NASDAQ listed company with a market value of $6 billion and a global user base of 18 million people. You can trade stocks, you can trade crypto, you can build your financial intelligence with their amazing learning platform. Again, the account is free to open. And when you make your first deposit in your Moomoo account, you're going to get an additional amount of free stocks. You can trade like a pro right inside their platform. Again, by going to redacted.inc/Moomoo, you will get 10 free stocks when you make those qualifying deposits. Get up to 5 free stocks right away, valued up to $2,500, and then it goes up from there. Really great platform. They just also, by the way, I should mention, they just opened up in the Australian market. So you have a lot of Australian users of our show. So they just opened the Australian market as well. In Australia, you get 180 days of brokerage-free trading for all Australian stocks and U.S. stocks. Again, the website right there on your screen you need to go to is redacted.inc/Moomoo to get your stocks today and start trading like a champion. Well, we have some major developments in the investigation of UFOs over the past few weeks that could lead us to full-scale disclosure over the next few weeks. We are really, I think, at a tipping point, an inflection point, where we are with the United States Senate, where we are with the United States House of Representatives, the Pentagon investigating UFOs. Will we actually see physical evidence that they will show us? We know they've got it. Will they actually finally reveal it to the American people and to the world? We've got a great guest on the show today. Christopher Sharp is the editor-in-chief over at Liberation Times, who's been doing some fantastic reporting on this subject for quite a while. I've been a big fan of his work, and we're thrilled to have him here on the show to talk about all things UFOs and bring us up to speed on all of this. Christopher, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me, Clayton. It's a true honor. I'm a huge fan of you as well. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Well, my pleasure. I've been loving your work. I think you do a fantastic job really diving into the nuances and the details around a subject that is very, very tricky and fairly complicated. We've had a very interesting summer as we've been watching what's been unfolding with Ukraine and everything that's been happening with China. And maybe lost in the weeds has been one of perhaps the biggest stories of all time. I don't know that there is a bigger story in the universe than the fact that we could be moving closer to disclosure in the United States and maybe beyond. So I wanted to have you on to bring our audience up to speed on some of your reporting. And one of the most recent pieces that you did in Liberation Times is around the Senate's move on the Intelligence Committee and criticizing the Pentagon. So let's unpack this story a little bit and dive into some of the details. Where are we right now with the Senate moving forward with UFO investigation?
So at the moment, we've got, so firstly, what we've had years of briefings behind the scenes with committees such as the Intelligence Committees, the House and the Senate, and Armed Services Committees. So, I mean, it's been a long time coming to what stage we're at the moment. But recently, we've had the draft, versions of the Intelligence Authorization Act and National Defense Authorization Act 2023, containing some really, really provocative kind of language in there, criticizing the Department of Defense for slow progress on investigating unidentified aerial phenomena, mostly in this is from behind the scenes. What I'm getting here is that this frustration that there's a lack of determination as to the origin of these craft that seem to kind of outmaneuver and defy the laws of physics, and that's one major concern. And
can I drill in on that Pentagon piece? Because I think this is really interesting. Maybe people don't know, and maybe our audience doesn't know this, that, you know, you have Congress on the one hand, and correct me if I'm wrong, really working towards their own investigatory model, right? So they're going to be moving towards investigating these craft under their own sort of auspices. And then on the other side, you have the Pentagon that was sort of sticking its neck into all of this, saying, no, we got it. We're running the show. But now you have the Senate, which is actually kind of pissed that the Pentagon is not moving quickly enough on this. Am I right on that, or am I dumbing it down too much?
That's correct, yes. So last year, what happened is that there was some draft legislation in the National Defense Authorization Act, which would create a UFO office, otherwise known as Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. And that was going to be really, really widespread in terms of its remit in investigating these unknown craft. But as that language was kind of being drafted, out of nowhere from the DoD comes this new office called, as they call it, AIMSOG. And that really, really pissed politicians off, from my understanding, just due to its timing, and also the scope wasn't as extensive as the Senate would like it to be, and also the fact that it would only investigate stuff in the airspace, whereas we know that these craft are known to be transmedium, hence why it's now called as unidentified aerospace undersea phenomena. But yeah, that's where it really starts.
That's a big piece of it, right? The underwater craft. We certainly saw that with the USS Nimitz footage, right, where you see this craft hovering above the water and then suddenly disappears into the water. And when you have 70% of the Earth covered in water, it only stands to reason that there should be more. And I would love to hear information from the Navy, submarine witness. You know, we always think about the aircraft. I've spoken to Marine Corps pilots. I've spoken to a number of pilots who talk about these craft having these UFOs trailing their jets, that they don't talk about them. And I would love to hear more from nuclear, submarine operators on this. I'm curious on that piece. You have a lot of interesting sources on this. Have you heard from in the British side, in the United States side, from the naval underwater UFO witnesses? Have you heard about more of that detail?
No, but that's probably one of the most troubling aspects of it. And there's an understandable silence as well, because Tom Rogan of the Washington Examiner has previously reported that DoD officials are very, very concerned about this aspect of the phenomena, because they seem to know where nuclear submarines are. And it's also been reported as well, rumored, let's say, that the Chinese and the Russians have also captured craft, and there's a secret race behind the scenes to back engineer this technology. So if China could back engineer the capability to identify underwater nuclear assets, then that's really game over. That means that the Chinese or the Russians or anyone else could potentially launch a first strike against the United States with no repercussions, perhaps.
This is, to me, the most important piece of this is the reverse engineering piece. Maybe not the most important, but one of the most interesting aspects. And it's also the people that were involved in these programs of reverse engineering. We've heard about their lives being destroyed when they've publicly spoken about this, right? Bob Lazar stands out as one of them. But others, of course, who on their deathbed or later in life finally talked about this or had their family write books about it, like in the case of Philip Corso, in the amazing book, The Day After Roswell, talking about the reverse engineering of UFOs, witnessing alien bodies. A big piece of this in the Senate and the House really is going to be protection for these people who've worked on these secret projects. Can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the whistleblower protections and that are involved in this?
Yeah, so one of the major concerns was if people would come forwards, that they would have their clearances taken away. Even those who were retired from these kinds of like contractors and stuff, they get to keep their clearance, and that's still quite lucrative to them after their career. So there was a lot of kind of hesitation, let's say, about coming forward because of that potential repercussion. However, new language from the Intelligence Authorization Act would actually allow people to take action in terms of compensation over damages from retaliatory acts such as that, and it would also remove the cap, which currently stands at $300,000 to actually claim compensation. So that's a major deal. major deal. And it's from my understanding as well that some people have already come forwards in private to certain committees, and that's a really, really big deal. And apparently they provided verifiable information relating to illegal and secretive UAP programs.
Which is unbelievable. And to think that members of Congress who, you know, I've interviewed a number of these people over the years who seemed skeptical for a while. I think that skepticism has now disappeared for many of them. After coming out of these meetings, talking with these individuals in private, people that I've spoken to privately who've now come forward and have been privately then speaking, again, behind closed doors with members of Congress. What are you hearing about that? Because it seems like we're in the middle of something. Something has changed. I
think a paradigm that has existed for hundreds, if not thousands of years is going to change. From my understanding of what I've been told, certain politicians have been privy to classified briefings, materials that have changed. It's changed their way of thinking about life. It's changed their lives forever. This is why you're seeing like 31 pages out of like 130 of the Intelligence Authorization Act dedicated to this topic. It has rattled people, from the top of government, basically. It has really rattled them. And from my understanding as well, it's the verifiable information not only this is what I'm being told by sources now, and bear in mind, such sources allow me to break the story about congressional hearings before the New York Times. Those same kinds of sources are telling me that this is verifiable information. And another source, what George Knapp stated on Coast to Coast a few days ago to me, that information provided to Congress pertains to not just crash retrieval programs, but also stuff relating to studying alien bodies as well. And yeah, that was something I wasn't expecting.
Well, I mean, if you think about historically, and again, I come back to Colonel Corso, who was handed a filing cabinet at the Pentagon and in charge of, and looking at crash retrieval information, bodies, one at my time in Dayton, Ohio, of course, the stories about bodies being transported to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, alien bodies being transported there, researching. It doesn't surprise me at all. And I think we are at this moment where we may start to hear more and more about this. Where do you think the Senate goes from here? Where do you think the House of Representatives goes from here? What are you hearing from your sources where Congress takes this next?
I think in terms of the UAP office, which is now being renamed Arrow, I don't have much hope for that because the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security is running the show there. And that's long been known for obfuscating this issue and having people who are just going to try to stop efforts. And from my understanding, there are some people within that organization that are going to continue to try to obstruct efforts. I don't really have much hope for that in the short term. However, the immunity language and people coming out about illegal and secretive programs, I'm quite bullish about that. And if that happens, I mean, that'll be a church committee type situation there. It'll be a huge scandal for US politics, but also more so, how do you make that information public? If you're sitting on a congressional committee, what do you do in terms of a communications plan and getting that information public? So yeah, I think that's the next step.
I'll get you out of here on this, Christopher. I guess the question I have is, well, what is holding them back? I could understand the fear around this after Orson Welles launches War of the Worlds, the radio, everyone panics back in the 1930s. People think, oh my God, the world's ending because this is really happening, right? Oh my God. And we saw the panic ensuing, police phone calls off the hook around the world, around the country, right? Because there was mass panic. Is that still why we have this secrecy, this reluctance to fully come out and admit, yes, we have UFOs that are off-world vehicles. These are crashed vehicles we've recovered with alien bodies inside of them. This technology is far superior than anything that we hope to have for 1,000 years. Deal with it. Like, is it mass panic, do you believe, or is there something else?
It's something else, I believe. I think it's their agenda and where we fit in all this as well. They haven't destroyed us. They can destroy us very easily. You just put an asteroid into our direction and we're gone. So that's not their intentions. So it seems like we might be needed for something. It seems that the phenomena is kind of indifferent to us in some ways, but also there also seems to be a need for human beings as well. So what is that? Are we being used by someone? If that information were to come out that we're kind of like a resource,
right, or a research project, we are so primitive that they can't believe that we're still killing each other with wars. Like they're studying us. Like, wow, look how primitive this world is. We're going to continue to look at this like a science project, like a petri dish, right?
Absolutely. And there have been rumors as well about abductions that are being taken more seriously now, especially by key committees within the Senate and House. So that sparks another conversation in terms of like, are these stories true? If so, are we being used for our DNA or something like that? And I mean, it really does make you question that. And also, this has been around for a long time as well. So it would literally change history and our understanding of history if this information were to come out.
Well, I'm encouraged that finally members of Congress are taking it seriously. They're getting these private briefings and it's changing their life. And we're starting to see some big movement and a big push against the Pentagon on this. So I'm encouraged about that. I think we need absolutely more transparency about it. And you've been doing an amazing job over at Liberation Times. I encourage all of our audience to go over there. I'll have a link in the description. Go check it out at liberationtimes.com. Subscribe. Read what Christopher is writing over there. He's doing an excellent job. He's got great sources and a great thinker in this space. Christopher, thank you so much for joining us here on the show. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Clayton. The pleasure is all mine. It's been a true honor to appear on your show.
Well, the honor's all ours. Thank you so much, Christopher. And thanks to all of you for subscribing. We have a daily newsletter. You should all subscribe. If you go to redacted.inc, it comes out first thing in the morning. If you subscribe to that newsletter, you can read it over your cup of coffee. Or if you're Christopher, maybe a bit of tea, I would think. Maybe not much of a coffee drinker. I don't know. So check it out. Redacted.inc is the place to go. Thank you so much for subscribing and being a part of our great community here. We will see you next time.